you like. They're quite different from usual bird feathers. So they're almost more like fur rather than feathers. Yeah. So they don't need the feathers to help them fly. So it's more about keeping them warm. Yeah, they do actually have wings, just really small ones. Just under here, just a tiny little wing bone about this big. And this is a model of a kiwi egg, the same size and the same weight. So if you want to know how heavy it is, you can cast it around for the right. It's surprisingly heavy. Yeah. So kiwis have the largest egg size compared to the body of a bird out of any birds out there. It's about the equivalent of a human giving birth to a 3 or 4 year old. Not nice to imagine. And actually they can't eat in the last few days before they lay the egg because there's just no room in their stomach. And they'll go and find a puddle to sit in to relieve the pressure. On. So have you guys seen kiwis before?
Yeah.
You want to see kiwis? You guys? You just did? Good. Good work. How many did you see? See 1 or 2? 2. Perfect. It helps when it's nice and quiet. Sometimes there's lots of little kids in there screaming away and it's pretty hard to see them. Come on in. I'm just showing this model of a kiwi. Do you guys want to come and give it a pat?
Yes.
And see what kiwi feathers feel like?
Yeah? Is that soft?
They feel quite different from a normal bird. We also have a kiwi egg.
Look at the kiwi egg.
It's pretty big, isn't it?
It's pretty big, isn't it?
So it's the biggest egg compared to the size of a body out of any bird out there.
It's a big egg, isn't it?
So where are you guys from? Are you Wellingtonians?
Newcastle.
Oh, nice. Okay. It's always good to have a few overseas visitors here to see our special New Zealand animals. Okay, I might make a start. If anyone else comes in, they can just join in. Is it going to crack? No, it's actually a model of an egg. It's not a real one. So it's okay. Well, welcome along, guys. Feel free to come further up to the front. My name's Kerry. I'm a visitor ranger here at the zoo, so I get to look after you guys, the visitors. So most of what I do during the day is giving talks and bringing out contact animals, so both of which I'm going to be doing here today. So I've got a tuatara and also a kiwi that I'm going to be bringing out. So 2 of New Zealand's really special animals. Who here has seen a tuatara? Have you seen a tuatara? Good. That's something exciting. Well, today you're going to get to see one and also touch one. So they feel pretty amazing, quite different from other reptiles that you might have felt. Yeah, so I'll make us out with our tuatara. So they're pretty special animals. They're reptiles, but they're not lizards. So they're more closely related to dinosaurs than they are to any of the living lizards or reptiles that are around today. So they're not closely related to anything at all. They're in their own special group. And the species as it is today has been around for 225 million years. They're a pretty long time without changing much at all. So they pretty much do everything slowly. So they evolve slowly, but they also move slowly and eat slowly and reproduce slowly. Yeah, so everything they do is pretty slow, especially on cold days. So they're ectothermic, so they have cold-blooded. So they, on hot days, they're able to move more, they're able to do a bit more. They have a higher metabolism, so they can eat a bit more. But on cold days like today, or in the middle of winter, they don't eat very much at all. They can go for a few days, a few weeks without eating anything. And they can actually go for an hour between breaths as well. So they're pretty special animals. Pretty bizarre. So I'll bring out this one here. He's just a baby. He's about 6 years old. But they do live for over 100 years. We don't actually know exactly how long, because no one's had them in captivity for long enough. So it might be much longer than that, we really don't know. But yeah, this guy's pretty young, so he's still pretty small. So he's just a baby, but when they get fully grown, they can be about the length of my arm. So they'll get pretty long, and he's pretty wriggly today. I did say that they can be they are really slow, but they can also be really fast when they want to. So if they want to get away, which you might want to, you just sit there, then they can actually move really fast. So that's what they'll do out in the wild. So they're called ambush predators. So what they do is they'll just sit there all day, normally find a nice sunny spot to sit, until an insect walks past. When it gets nice and close, they'll jump on it and grab it. So they'll eat things even as big as weta, so up to sort of about this big. They'll eat all sorts of different insects. Okay. Oh, he's got some stuff on his head. Right in the spot where he would normally, when he's young, he has a third eye. So right in the middle of his head, just there, when they're really, really young, it's not exactly like a fully formed eye, but it can actually detect light. So that's to help them absorb as much vitamin D from the sunlight as possible. So because it's quite cold in New Zealand, these guys need as much help as they can get to help them grow. So they need to be able to absorb lots of vitamin D, and that's a way to help them with that. And another way they've got to help them out is this really soft, thin skin. So has anyone here touched an Australian reptile before?
You touched a reptile before?
Anyone touched a snake or some sort of lizard or something like that? What do they feel like?
Yeah, soft and it's pretty soft.
Yeah, soft but quite scaly,
Yeah,
almost
scaly.
maybe thick skin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tuataras feel really different. So they're quite soft and thin because they need to absorb as much sunlight as possible. Whereas Australian reptiles and reptiles from other places can have this, really sorry, I'm just going to have a wiggle. There we go. They can have this really thick skin to help protect them, but they can still absorb enough sunlight because there's lots out there. Whereas tuatara don't really have that option, so they have this really thin skin. So what you can all do is you can actually have a feel of it. So I'll start down this end and I'll work my way along. And you can just have a gentle touch down his back if you like. Just down here if you like. And feel what his skin feels like. You'll also notice he's got these spines down his back, which at the moment are really soft, but as he gets older, those will get bigger and they'll also harden up. And especially in males, they can end up being quite spiky. So tuatara, like other lizards, can drop their tail. You guys want to have a patch?
If they get caught by a predator, then they'll drop their tail, you see, so that's why you don't hold them too tight. It's their escape mechanism.
So we don't really have tuatara on the mainland of New Zealand much anymore. They're threatened by lots of predators that we have around. So unless they're in a sanctuary, like Karori Sanctuary in Wellington, or on an offshore island, they don't live out in the wild. You'll have a chance. Everyone had a chance to meet him? You guys at back? Okay, thank you. So what I'll do is I'll pop him back and I'll then introduce you to our next New Zealand animal. So I know most of you have seen Kiwi before. So what I'm going to do before I bring him out is tell you a little bit of a story, which maybe you haven't heard before. So this is a story, a Māori myth. So Māori are the indigenous people in New Zealand, and they have a myth from a long time ago, before there were humans in New Zealand. So back then, there were Māori gods that used to walk around the land in Aotearoa. And the god of the forest, his name was Tani Mahuta. So this is a story about Tani Mahuta and how he got Kiwi to help him out, save him in the forest. So one day, Tani Mahuta was out in the forest. He was wandering around. He was looking at all the trees. And he saw that the trees seemed to be dying because there were lots and lots of insects everywhere. They were crawling all over the ground and all the way up into the trees and eating all the leaves. And so Tani Mahuta, he was quite worried. So what he did is he called a meeting of all the forest birds. He said, "Birds, I need you to help me. I need one of you to come down from the tops of the trees, down to the forest floor, and eat up all the bugs." And none of the birds volunteered. So Tani Mahuta turned to the tui. He said, "Tui, will you help me out? Will you come down from the tops of the trees, down to the forest floor, and eat up all these bugs?" And the tui looked down. He saw how dark and how cold it was down there. He said, "No, I won't do it. I'm afraid of the dark." So Tani Mahuta then turned to the pukeko. He said, "Pukeko, will you help me out? Will you come down from the tops of the trees, down to the forest floor, and eat up all these bugs?" And the pukeko looked down. He saw how wet and how damp it was down there. He said, "No, I won't do it. I don't like having wet feet." So by now, Tani Mahuta was getting quite worried, until a little voice behind him said, "I'll do it." And it was the Kiwi. That was the Kiwi just there, saying, "I'll do it." And so Kiwi came down from the tops of the trees, where once upon a time he lived. He came down to the forest floor, and he started eating all the bugs. He ate and he ate and he ate and he ate, until he started getting really fat, fatter and fatter, until soon he couldn't fly anymore. So his wings got smaller and smaller. But he did get a really big long beak and really big strong feet to help him scratch through the undergrowth. And so by coming down from the tops of the trees, the Kiwi helped to save the forest. He ate up all those bugs that were killing the trees. And so Tani Mahuta gave him a reward. He said to the Kiwi, "You're going to be known all around the world. The people will come from the other side of the world to see you because you're such a special bird. And you'll be known as the guardian of the forest." Now Tani Mahuta also gave something to the tui and the pukeko, but it wasn't a reward. So the tui, he got the mark of a coward. He got the little white feathers under his chin to show that he was too scared to come down and help out the forest. And now the pukeko, he got something too. He was banished to the swamps to forever live his days with wet and wrinkly feet. Now it's actually our turn to help out the Kiwi, to become guardians of Kiwi now, because they're quite endangered birds. We have lots of predators in New Zealand, and they don't get on very well with our Kiwis, and so they're really endangered. And out in the wild, there's not too many of them, especially the young ones as well are really at risk. So there's actually a few things that we can do if we live in New Zealand, but also if you live overseas, there's things you can do to help out your native birds as well. So does anyone here have a cat or a dog at home? Do you guys have a dog? A cat?
I call him Casper.
Oh, that's a good name. Well, what you can do with your dog at home is if you're ever taking him on a walk somewhere where there might be Kiwi, you make sure you keep him on a leash. So dogs love the smell of Kiwi, and they'll run after them if they catch a scent. So it's a really good idea to keep him on a leash if there's any chance at all that there might be Kiwi around. And if you've got a cat, what you can do is you can keep them on your inside at night, so snug it up on your bed so they're not out hunting birds. So that's the time of day when cats are most likely to be hunting, is overnight. And it's a good way to look after Kiwi, but also look after any other native birds as well. So lots of our native birds are really vulnerable to predators, especially cats. So that's things that we can do to help out Kiwi, because they're pretty special birds. So today I'm going to be introducing you to an extra special Kiwi. Anyone know why Tahi is extra special? Maybe? Anyone see here that he has only one leg? Okay, so what happened to Tahi is he used to live out in the wild, and one day he stumbled upon a trap that was put out for predators. It's a type of trap that isn't allowed anymore, but he lost his leg in that, and since then he's been living here at Wellington Zoo, and he's been a great ambassador for his species. So I'm going to bring him out and pop him up here, and you guys are welcome to take photos or anything like that, but just take the flash off your camera, and the quieter you are, the longer out he'll stay out. So he gets to choose when he goes back in. So what I'm going to be feeding him today is what all Kiwis who live in captivity get to eat. Does anyone want to have a smell? You guys want to have a smell? This is like chocolate for Kiwis. You think you guys would want to eat this? No?
What does it smell like?
Anyone else want to have a smell? Yeah? It's ox heart. So, not something that looks very tasty, but it's what all Kiwis get to eat because it's really high in protein but really low in fat. So good for birds that are out in the forest scratching around all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring him out, but he's probably a little bit sleepy because Kiwis like to sleep at night. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wake him up before we bring him out. So you guys are going to have to help me out with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to say kia ora. So the Māori way of saying hello, but we're going to make it even more Kiwi by saying kia ora bro. Okay? You guys think we can do this? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Kia ora bro. It's fairly quiet, but I think it might have woken him up. Come on, Daddy. He's also a little bit rickety today. So Tahi actually had an artificial leg made for him. He's not wearing it. What happened is Weta Workshops, so the organisation that works on some of the really famous movies, they got together with the Wellington Artificial Limb Society and they developed a special Kiwi artificial leg. So they watched lots of Kiwis and saw how they moved and made this perfect artificial leg. But at the time it took for them to do that, Tahi got really used to just hopping around on his one leg and he decided he didn't even want it. So now it just lives out back and Tahi just hops around quite happily. So you'll notice when he hops back in, he actually is it. So Kiwi with 2 legs can run pretty fast, up to about 40 k's an hour. He can't quite go that fast, but he still gets around pretty alright. You might also notice he's got whiskers. So Kiwi are the only birds that have whiskers, and they work just pretty much the same way that cats' whiskers do. So helping him get around in the dark and getting into things. So if you have any questions, feel free to send it up. I'll answer them for you.
How old do Kiwis live for?
Quite a long time actually, so up to about 50 years.
50.
50, yeah. 40 or 50.
How old's he?
We don't actually know exactly. So he was out in the wild and fully grown when he got caught in the trap. So we've had him for about 8 years now. So yeah, we don't know exactly how old he is because he was fully grown when he came here. It's about middle aged.
Is that 50 years? Is that quite old for a bird in general? Other birds in general?
Yes, fairly old. Trying to think. I know parrots live for quite a long time, but generally, yeah, 50 years is pretty old for a bird.
Yeah.
Of course, tuatara's getting to 3 figures, don't they?
Yeah, we don't know exactly how long, because no one's really had any in captivity long enough to know, but definitely at least 100 years. We've only got the young ones here at Wellington Zoo. There are a few quite old ones in captivity. They get huge when they're old.
And most tuatara on islands around.
Yeah, on offshore islands, they're really vulnerable to predators, so they don't really live anywhere on the mainland unless it's a sanctuary. Right down at the bottom now.
Of course, technically, Kiwis have the shortest beak of all.
They do. They definitely do. Do you want to explain why?
The beak, technically speaking, is measured from the end of the beak to where the nostrils are, and as the nostrils are at the end of the beak, it's a very small distance.
Great for young players.
Yeah.
So that's how we trick people out. So kiwis are, I think, the only bird out there to have nostrils right at the end of their beak. Yeah, you can see him. How well he is, isn't he?
There you go. That's all folks.
Yeah, he doesn't come out very often. So the best way, if you want to see some more kiwi, is to head through this way. So we have one kiwi on either side, and we also have some more in there as well. Other than that, I hope you all have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Cheers.